Welcome back. This, of course, is K24 This Morning. We're looking at the big stories of the day as well. Keep your views coming in. K24 TV, so get us on Twitter. Odusil saying BBI is surrounded with lots of anticipation until everyone, especially political class, are threatened. That's why the delay has been there. Justin Jogona says we need leaders and now we are tired of politicians. Want our leaders back. That's the issue he's addressing right there. Justin Jogona, where are the 9 stadiums we were promised, the studies? Where are our Huduma cards? Where are NOS scandal thugs? Where are Kimorer Dam thugs? We are tired of stories. What is it they want to bring new that is not in the 2010 constitution? Tumechoka. Wow. Okay, keep them coming in at K24 TV right there, even as we discuss these particular issues right here. Like I said, at times to look at these tweets, and it seems like a bit of disillusionment right there. We have a caller coming in. Who's coming in? Is someone calling me? Do you want to take it live?
No.
No? You want to take it off camera? Okay, 1 second, of course, as we get to that right here. There's another issue we need to discuss, and it's all about reproductive health rights. That's what we've been talking about, sexual and reproductive health rights. As far as the ICPD Nairobi Summit is concerned, the church looking at this from a different angle altogether, and they've been very, put a hardline stance on this and saying that this is a guise that is being used, and what they're trying to do actually is come and control Africa through population control, not population planning. What's your take on this particular issue? Because they've really stood tough on this one and saying that, yes, they're coming here saying they're helping us, but there's an ulterior motive to this summit being done in Kenya, Dennis.
Yeah, I think it's a problem when you say that you want to control the population much more than even planning for the population. Even if you were to say we have the people who are already there, you need to actually plan on how they will be able to really coexist, on how they will have particular things in place to ensure that the economy is growing, is able to sustain the population that is in place. So, but I think there's a general feeling that this country, the world does not have enough space and resources to keep managing everybody, and that is, I think, far from the truth. Mm-hmm. There is enough in place for everyone. There is, if only our leaders across the divide were to do what they ought to do. I want to link to one of the Kenyans who have tweeted, who said, tumechoka. Mm-hmm. Tells you that if the leaders were to do the right thing so that Kenyans don't feel, or the people across the world do not feel like they are fed up, they are tired, then we will not be dealing with the control of the population, right, but we will be dealing with the issue of planning, ensuring the resources are able to reach everybody fairly and equitably.
Right.
And that is one of the issues that we really lack in terms of right, governance.
Okay.
And probably, if you look, I could contextualize in Kenya. If you are looking at the quality of leaders, we have had a lot of constitutional changes which were not there previously, particularly Chapter 6 of the Constitution. But the question is, how is it implemented? What quality of leaders are we getting in place? We changed the law and moved from, let's not have cabinet secretaries or then called ministers being politicians, right, let's have technocrats. But ask me today, I'll tell you it was a mistake. We don't have technocrats. We have people who have become more politicians themselves than the politicians. Mm-hmm. They are not doing it. So that if you listen to what they are saying, they are not talking about planning. If we were to put it within Kenyan context, every time we are borrowing to spend on things that are not helping us to grow our economy.
Right.
And if we are growing, then we are growing at a very small rate, if any.
Okay.
And that is a problem. So we've really, the question of implementation of some of the policies to give us the kind of leaders that we wanted. I think I'll go by what you once said, the young people are saying, that things on ground are different.
They're different.
We want this kind of person, but by the time we go through the process, the quality of leaders that we get are totally different from what we really want.
Okay, let me bounce to Honorable Midu on this, because another school of thought on this is the issue that even as the summit comes to talk about sexual rights as well, the LGBTQI community, some people are saying that in Africa, those are not the issues we're grappling with now. That's something that's coming from the West. What we need is poverty, corruption, my next meal, before you talk to me about all of these other things. What's your take on that with regard to the summit that's going on? Can we walk and chew gum on this, solve corruption and poverty, and deal with the LGBTQI?
First of all, I think it's wrong to hold that thing at a time when our economy is collapsing in the city center. In the last 3 days, it's impossible for us to do any work in Nairobi because people are talking about LGBT. Why can't you do that thing in Mombasa? Why can't you do it even in Nanyuki, get a kiwanja somewhere, so that we are not in this interference? I can tell you what I'm thinking about the conference is that is the world spending money for the heck of it. Personally, I will ignore. Whoever wants to pay attention to that kind of thing, it's their thing. I think we have much bigger problems. You're reading from your tweets, and one of our viewers is saying, what new law can they bring? Right. And that is actually the crux of the matter. You know, Mutuma is saying, chapter 6, we have not implemented it. No, chapter 6, you know, a constitution is like a Bible. You know, if you read a verse, it should apply to you, to your heart. It's the guiding principles. It is not for the police to tell us follow chapter 6. It is for the state to prosecute us for not following it. That is why we need to further our laws in a way to reverse the failed attempt. Like he's saying, the one for having cabinet ministers outside parliament has failed. You can only change it through changing the constitution. So the people who are averse to the idea of changing constitution must know there is an issue that has been raised by Ben about police brutality. It was expected that we shall do police reform. The reforms which were brought was to enlarge the bureaucracy in the police. Came up with, I don't know, county commandant, regional commandant, all those things. That somebody whose mind is not so informed was doing reforms. But doing his own thing, which was not the recommendation of the implementing chapter of the Constitution. We needed to say which reform. Like I said then and I say today, that the person, what we needed to do two things. Coming out of post-election violence, we needed to rehabilitate police. Remember the police vetting, you're asking police, you have 10,000 shillings in your account. Where did you get it from? No, you can't ask somebody that. When people have money, money does not just have the name of Ruto. Money, even a karaoke who is a cop in Kikomba can have $1 million bob. You don't chase them away from their job. What do you want the police to do? You are building SGR and the police are living all over the country. They are living behind shops. How do you expect them to be good human beings? I did say the first IG should have come from somewhere in the Commonwealth, either Ghana or Canada or England, to come and help us rewrite police training manuals. And we never even helped the police. After politicians made them, some of them kill people under very difficult circumstances in 2007. We have never even called Otieno to ask him, why were you, what did you do? Like the Rwandese did with the Gashesha courts, like the South Africans did. You come somewhere where I was there sitting, and you say, I did this, but it is bothering me. There are so many policemen walking the streets who are mentally bothered. You just don't kill, you try even pointing a gun at a human being. It is so bothersome. We have refused to face issues as a country. Okay. So let me just finish. We must do reforms. Number one, get courts out of the political process. Leave Supreme Court to deal with controversies in presidential election. Number two, change the way, change how we arrive at our leaders.
So those are the issues we should be looking at and not what's being discussed at the summit as of now.
Exactly. Those are things which are bothering us. You know, how do you end up with such a bad MP? You know, when last week, 2 weeks ago, when they were lifting the interest cap rate, 270 MPs were in parliament. When it came to time for debate, to begin the debate, only 166 were there. It means 100,000 people, 100 MPs walked into parliament and each walked out with 7,000 shillings and on our tab. I mean, what are they doing there? What do we want to do? At least let us discuss, how do we arrive at a good leader, a responsible one? And who takes responsibility? Which brings me to my last point, that we must change the electoral process. And we must have an institution to blame, not individuals, not our poor people whom thieves have bribed to steal their vote.
Okay. Yeah. Ben, let me bring you in on this as well. Still on the Nairobi summit of the ICPD. Yes. Is it time for us to discuss these issues? Because that's a question going on right now. It's part of the bigger international agenda. We've seen it in the West. These are key issues in terms of the right in this particular area. But the same question I asked to Medio, and it's come up in different forms that, yes, it's an issue, but right now when you look at the landscape of where the summit is taking place, totally different issues that are actually at hand and what needs to be addressed right now.
Jeff, there is something very interesting that we must come alive to as a continent, as Africa. We have been for so long treated to narratives that are created by all manner of characters from out there, and then they come here making it look like it is extremely important. And unfortunately, we have also people who are tasked with ensuring or actually safeguarding our interests, running with those things without taking time to critically understand what is important. It is extremely notable that in the Millennium Development Goals that were targeted to be concluded by or achieved by 2015, the issue of reducing child mortality and improving, ending child mortality and maternal health care were goals number 3 and 4, no, goals number 4 and 5 in the MDGs. It is worthy to note that those goals are no longer as prominent or given prominence under the SDGs. Then the question would be why? There has been concerns about the population of Africa and what this projects for the future of the world in the next few years. As we are all aware, there are, especially Europe and many other countries in the West, their populations have either stagnated or actually dwindling. And this poses a challenge to them in terms of, populations come with significant attributes, including economic capacities and all that. So most of these conversations are not designed and are not being held in the interest of the African continent. This is one thing the African Union needs to pick up and actually now stamp their foot down. Unfortunately, we end up with too many puppets sitting there and working at the interests of most of the Western powers against the interest of the people of Africa. So this focus too much on reproduction health and LGBT rights and all that is completely misplaced and has no place in what are the real issues that are affecting Africa. Okay. We need to be discussing about the safety and the safety of mother and child to be able to secure our future populations. We need to be discussing more on issues of food security, because these are the critical issues that Africa need to be focusing on. This idea of funny lifestyles, believe you me, is a conversation that we are being whipped into. We have also seen concerns about some of the vaccines that have been doing rounds. And as Africa, we also have to stamp our foot down and begin to hold conversations that are important to us. Let those who feel that these things are important to them sit in New York or those other places and also do the same. But around here, I think we need to have those guided conversations.
Gabriel, let me bring in on this as well, because as we're talking about population control and planning, I could see you nodding and like this is probably the crux of the matter as far as this summit is concerned, and the venue that has been chosen for the summit.
You know, apart from the traffic that Senior is talking about, this is a very good discussion to be having, and a very good one to be having in this country. Kenya, our population now, as you saw in the recent census, where everybody actually has taken, actually they do a lot of mistrust in that census. We are attributed to be about 47 million. Our population is higher than that of Canada. Our population is higher than that of Australia. And if you look at those countries, these are massive, huge countries. These are producing nations, right? We really need to have a serious talk about our population. Back in the 80s, that is when President Moi was telling us, Pangeni Uzazi. And you know, we have not used our census and other statistical data to further up and ask these kind of census, what should we do? Because many nations, when they get a population census, it is to ascertain what kind of growth do we need to bring here. We are expecting this area to have about 900 or 9,000 children born. So we are looking to have academic institutions built in there. That is how census should ideally work. It should be used as a pre-document that tells you how you need to organize your nation in many things that support the growth of a country. Here, we don't use it for that. Here we use it to get power.
It's for politics.
It is for politics and to get power. Somebody is saying, no, our population cannot be like that. How long will it take for us to be the majority or to be the major tribe? You see how, you know, how twisted we kind of think? So, as we talk about population control, you need to look at a case study like China. In the 80s, when they introduced a one-child policy, why did they do that, right? It is when you look at what you're having as a country and where you're heading. These are great projections for us to learn from.
Okay.
In the next 100 years, 50 years after independence, look at how our population has grown exponentially. So what do we expect, Jeff, in the next 50 years? This country will be cramped. So we need, and I know this will be a time when we are not there. But we need to plan so that our children can have an easy time managing and running the affairs of this great nation of ours. So when we're talking about population, it is very good for us to be in hindsight to that. Not only do we set up a stage where we say, okay, it is enough for Jeff to have 2 children, but Jeff in his community thinks that Jeff must have 8 children just in case 4 die. Mm-hmm. So and I've had so many people, as a matter of fact, I know people in my community who think like that. Oh, you know, we were told we should have just in case. So what that tells you is that we must work on the infant mortality to ensure that even if Jeff has 2 kids, they are taken care of, that, you know, the isolation that, you know, one may, you know, may die does not even come to play.
But another thing that came up, and I want you to address this because of time, even as we move from population, right. Another interesting angle and debate that was brought up at this particular summit is lowering the voter age. Yes. To 16. Yes. And they were saying that they want to do this because there's a huge youth bulge across the continent. Yes. To have these included in the decisions that are made and have more inclusion in terms of elections as far as the youth is concerned. We're about to wind up the show, but what do you think about having 16-year-olds in 2022 casting the votes?
Well, at the age of 16, really, I mean, it's neither here nor there. My question is, yes, Jeff, we agree. Forget the age. We agree, even at the age of 18, I mean, that's just 2 years removed. What are you able to do? What kind of decisions are you able to make? Are you edified enough to know the challenges that you have in your nation? And are you able to make that vote count? The issue is not just showing up to the booth. The issue is knowing where to cast your vote and how to make the change that you know is getting your society. Those are some of the challenges that we are facing. Even the grown-ups are making wrong decisions. So the age should not be, you know, here or there. What we should be talking about is the challenges that we face today. How is society and the government wired to support the growth of that child? The issue is, and I've had so many people say, oh, you know what? Now we have a high child rate. The youth are just coming out of university. And I'm like, so you would want us to stop educating people? No, that should not be. Ours, it should be. We have challenges in this great city, in this great country of ours. We have ideas that can be married to ensure that the situations that we are going through are taken care of. I mean, we have a beautiful ecosystem when it comes to agriculture, all right? How do we marry these children who are coming out of colleges to know that you can make livelihood out of farming? These are some of the things that we should be talking about.
Dennis, let me bring in on this as well, even as we are bringing this to a close. Don't want to bring it down to 16 years of age. That's around probably in the education system around Form 2. So in Form 2, but during the general election, you can go and cast your vote. What do you feel about that?
Two problems. Firstly is the fact that when you bring it down to 16, of course you introduce a very large band of voters who are very young, and you cannot control their vote in terms of who they place, and therefore you cannot be so confident in terms of the kind of, if they make a choice, when I have seen many young people argue and say, because you are young, we need to be elected. I mean, that is the only reason why they wanted to be elected, and why there is arguments that all MCAs should be very young people. And probably that is why we do not have functional counties, because you want to put there a person to put checks and balances to the governor's office because of age. And this person is so young that anything can really sway them in terms of decision making.
Right.
So their stability in decision making becomes questionable if we were to introduce a large band of people. But again, I think being fair and with a lot of respect to our seniors. Many of our seniors, when it comes to real voting, they do not use their minds. So really, it won't even matter whether you want to bring 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds.
It's the same
because
problem.
it's the same thing. So really, we should not even have a discussion as to whether it's age. We should really look at what ails our voters. What do we need to do?
Okay.
And I think that is within really, it's the middle class that needs to revolutionize their thinking and decide that we have to change the leadership, we have to change the policies and ensure that we have quality leaders in office, irrespective of what age that they will be.
Ben, I'll have you respond on that particular issue as well. 16-year-old voters.
Yeah, a very quick one on that. If you take time, actually, you know, there are some newspapers that publish columns, especially over the weekends, with feedback from children. And if you actually take time to engage with 6, 7, 8-year-olds in this country, you'll be very surprised. They have so much content that beats what I listened to from the 11th Parliament. Just find time to listen to those kids. You'll be very surprised. And they have a very good grasp of issues. And when they watch politicians on TV, they can tell you this is not a good guy and this is a good guy by just listening to them. So I think the issue of voter age is really neither here nor there, and because that happens when schools are closed most of the times. I think it would be a good idea to have a fairly younger generation. When I was 16, I think I was in Form 3, and I was extremely clear in my mind in terms of what I wanted for the kind of leaders I wanted for this country. So that to me would not be quite an issue. It would be welcome in my view. But we also have to point out very quickly that age can never be made to be a political agenda. We have very aged people in this country who cannot show anything for the number of years on their back. And we also have very young people who are very despicable in terms of what they have been able to do in leadership positions. Let us make an assessment of individuals based on their character, their competence, and their capabilities. Whether they are 90 or whether they are 9, is really neither here nor there.
Honorable Midio, you said you're actually looking at how you'll retire from politics. And as we talk about that, there are those 16-year-olds who might be coming in to vote. What do you think about that particular scenario and that suggestion that we have a huge youthful demographic? They should have their say at the ballot as well.
But we don't need the white man to tell us.
That's your problem. That's the issue you have with it.
That's the issue. You know, the way the world runs, in their own countries, 16-year-olds don't vote. So don't bring it here. Even if we wanted to be gays and lesbians, we don't need the white man to come here and tell us. Let us, you know, we must begin to be inward looking as a people. That's how you create nations.
Absolutely.
When you see things that happen, I always try to look at things with from a global picture, Jeff. When you are doing something, for example, say SGR, and the engineers are all from China. Why are you protecting a local engineer here? Inward looking, that is how you create a nation.
Right.
And I can tell you, imagine how we go to school. In their countries, there are no boarding schools. With corruption, even you have seen, kids are being arrested with exam papers they're that mature, but negatively mature. So, for example, what if I bought all the heads of schools in my constituency if I wanted to run and pay the kids? They will all vote for me without issues. You know, because there are people who live in a community. There are no boarding schools in America. There are no boarding schools. Kids leave their parents and go to school and come back when they're in high school. Ours, the boarding school is the end thing. You must look at how we live and not copycat, because that is the problem we have with this constitution. And this conference, I can tell you, the motive is ill.
We shall leave it at that. That's quite a point to leave it at as far as the newspaper review is concerned. It's the last day, actually, of this particular Nairobi summit of the ICPD 25 right there. And that, of course, is where we wind up our newspaper review this morning. But the conversation continues online. You can tweet us at K24 TV. You can also SMS us on 21222. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Dennis Anyoko, of course, advocate of the High Court. Our governance expert, Ben Mulwa, thank you so much for making time.
Asante
of course,
sana.
Political analyst Gabriel Muthuma. Asante sana for making time this morning. Honorable Jacob Midiwa, thank you so much for making time this morning. We take a short break. Back on the other side, we get interactive.